Hello my pretties, I'm Chris from TechSpert, and today's unboxing extravaganza is going to be a double whammy. We've got not one but two new premium smartphones, the Vivo X70 Pro and the X70 Pro Plus. The Pro Plus is naturally the more premium of the pair, but both of them sport some very snazzy Zeiss-branded gimbalized camera tech. Now, I don't know the official UK pricing at the time I shot this video because I shot it ahead of the official launch, but I will bung that in the video description when it is revealed. For now, let's whip them out of the box, take you on a full-on tour of the hardware, the software, see how they stack up against one another for the specs and whatnot. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So first up, the X70 Pro Plus, definitely winning the battle of the boxes. X70 Pro, very nicely presented and everything, photography redefined, but on the X70 Pro Plus you've got this gradual reveal style box, which is very snazzy. Definitely worth the doubtless hundreds of extra pounds just for that. That little difference aside, however, what you actually get bundled in the box is very similar for these two smartphones. So you get one rather sizable adapter, one Type-C USB cable. You've got a protective case bundled with each phone. In the case of the X70 Pro, it's your standard rubbery condom case. In the case of the Pro Plus, that's a more rigid plastic affair. And you can get some wired Vivo branded earphones bundled in there as well. So now let's compare these Vivo smartphones side by side, and as you can clearly see there, the X70 Pro Plus definitely has a bit of extra stature compared with the smaller X70 Pro. The Plus model is a 6.78-inch Godzilla compared with the standard 6.56-inch Vivo X70 Pro. And you can definitely feel the weight difference as well. The Pro Plus is 30 grams heavier than its smaller sibling. Both come in black as standard, although the Pro is available in a lighter Aurora Dawn colour as well. Very simple, straightforward aesthetics on both of these Vivo X70 smartphones. It's glass surfacing around on the arse end with a matte finish, so thankfully, touchwood, neither seems to pick up greasy fingerprints too easily. And besides the obvious size difference, you can easily tell the Pro Plus from the X70 Pro because it's got this extended camera chassis, a little bit of reflective material there, which actually could be pretty handy. You can use it to see if you've got anything stuck in your teeth before heading into a meeting or something. No real differences at all to speak of between the Vivo X70 Pro and the X70 Pro Plus when it comes to the buttons and the ports. It's exactly the same arrangement on both. However, there is one more invisible difference between the pair, and that's the fact that the Vivo X70 Pro Plus sports IP68 water and dust resistance, so you can drop it in the sink and a bubbly bath, whatever, it should hopefully survive just fine, whereas the Vivo X70 Pro does not apparently sport an IP rating. And no difference at all in the SIM setup. You've got a double-sided SIM tray on both, but unfortunately there's no space for a microSD memory card. Alright, so the Vivo X70 Pro and the X70 Pro Plus all set up and ready for action. And what you got here is of course a bit of Android 11 action, but smothered on top of that is Vivo's very own Fun Touch launcher. And no, I didn't make that shit up. Look, it really is called Fun Touch. Is it actually fun to touch? Well, the good news is that similar to other launchers like MIUI, it's got more of a stock Android vibe these days. So for instance, you've got your apps straight in there. You can drag down that notifications bar. The likes of the Google Discover feed, that's on there as well. However, what you also get on the Vivo X70 smartphones is a shag load of crapware. I mean, look at all the stuff that comes pre-installed on here. A few of these bits I've thrown on myself, but things like Agoda, Booking.com, a load of stuff I don't even know what it is, like Byyeeeee and Lazada. Shopee, I mean, most of it just sounds made up. And then you've got the likes of Hot Apps, which tries to fill your phone with even more crapware. And I'm sorry, but I don't think Talk and Tom has ever been described as a hot app. Still, on the positive side, most of this rubbish can be quickly and easily wiped from your smartphones. And also the good news is you've got 256 gigs of storage on both of these smartphones, although I believe you can pick up the Vivo X70 Pro in a 128GB version if you want to. And it's UFS 3.1, so nice and nippy. Although some apps on there are actually fairly worthwhile, like iManager, which allows you to clear up all the crap that you've got stored on your smartphone, check out how much data you're using, all that kind of shenanigans. Certainly got plenty of bonus tools on here as well. And there's loads of other bonus bits chucked away on here, the likes of the Ultra Game mode, which I will explore later. And on a security tip, it is a fingerprint sensor built into the display, an optical sensor in both cases, and nice and fast and responsive. Certainly had absolutely no issues using either of those on my first 48 hours with these smartphones. And speaking of those screens, well, they're both mighty AMOLED panels. There's a 6.56 inch on the standard Pro, 6.78 inches on the Pro Plus, so definitely one for you media and gaming fans. And that more spacious panel does boast a better resolution as well, WQHD, so it's 3200 by 1440 pixels, whereas the standard Pro boasts a more standard resolution, Full HD 2376 by 1080. Generally, you won't really notice a difference between the visual output though between these two unless you are closely examining a high-res photo on both, and that's when you'll see the standard Pro produces slightly more grain and misses out on the finer details that you will see pumped out by the Pro Plus. But if you're just streaming a bit of Netflix, Disney Plus or whatever, very similar output on both, very similar color, tonal reproduction, same crisp contrast, all that good stuff. In both phones, the screen does curve ever so slightly around those edges as well, and of course you do have the selfie orifice housed up top in a central position. And the Vivo X70 Pro and the X70 Pro Plus's screens get powerfully bright on that top level as well, so again, using them outdoors on a sunshiny day, not a trouble. And in those display settings, Vivo allows you to tinker around with the screen color outputs. You can choose between several different presets, otherwise you can manually configure it as well. As you can see, you've got the usual eye comfort modes and all that shenanigans. And also if we dive down to the bottom, you'll see you've got the screen refresh rates option as well. And as you can see, it's set to smart switch by default, so that will automatically change the refresh rate depending on what app you're actually using. So supported apps, it will boost it up to 120 Hz, otherwise you can just do that manually. Things are most certainly not equal when it comes to the audio output as well, because the standard Vivo X70 Pro only has a mono speaker housed down here on the bottom edge, whereas you've got a stereo speaker output here on the Pro Plus. But is there any actual real difference in that audio quality? Well, let's find out.
11 Lite 5G NE for the last week or so. I've been using it as my full-time smartphone, so here is my in-depth review, and for more on the latest and greatest tech.
And now the Pro Plus.
So here is my in-depth review, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers!
And yeah, the mono speaker on the Vivo X70 Pro is perfectly acceptable, gets reasonably loud and the clarity stays fine, but the X70 Pro Plus definitely a step up in terms of the actual audio quality, slightly louder as well, just sounds better. Unfortunately, bugger all headphone jack action on either of these Vivo X70 smartphones, that is a bloody shame, but thankfully no issues streaming via Bluetooth to speakers or headphones, so at least you've got that to depend on. Now performance, and the Vivo X70 Pro is powered by MediaTek's fresh Dimensity 1200 chipset, as also found on the Xiaomi 11T and to some degree to the OnePlus Nord 2, it's a slightly tweaked version in there. Whereas the Vivo X70 Pro Plus is powered by Qualcomm's equally a fresh Snapdragon 888 Plus. And Vivo's crammed 12 gigs of RAM into both of these smartphones, though I believe you can pick up the standard Pro with just 8 gigs as well if you want. And Vivo's been making a big deal of the fact you've got virtual RAM on both these smartphones as well. What that basically means is it uses the storage as makeshift memory when the memory is actually full. I mean, with 12 gigs on board, you'd hope that that's not really going to be an issue, and of course, using virtual memory much slower than standard memory. As you can see there, a clear difference in the Geekbench scores between the MediaTek chipset and the Qualcomm. That's to be expected. There is definitely a performance difference between the two, but the good news is that the standard Vivo X70 Pro is still perfectly capable of doing everything you could possibly want it to. Apps load up in a jiffy, absolutely no hanging about or anything like that. And also, if you are a gamer, yeah, you're probably going to be more tempted by that Pro Plus with its extra grunt, but the Vivo X70 Pro, perfectly capable of playing top tier titles like Genshin Impact on higher detail settings as well, without any judders or stammers to really ruin your gameplay experience. Certainly both of these smartphones should be capable of playing any title on the Google Play Store, absolutely no worries whatsoever. And reassuringly, I didn't notice any proper build-up of heat when I was gaming on, again, Genshin Impact on either of these smartphones over a length of time. You know, neither of them toasted my fingertips, and the performance remained solid throughout. And when you are gaming, you've got the Ultra Game mode, which you can activate at any point. You just drag out the little menu like so. It's a little bit shy, but it gets there eventually. This allows you to check on how the resources are handling the current title. You can also block notifications so you can stay in the game, get a bit of picture-in-picture mode on the go, record the screen, etc. And as you can see, there's also a performance mode that you can swap to just to make sure that all the resources are dedicated to your game. There's nothing in the background, you know, sucking up your bandwidth and your memory and all that. You've got a 5G modem built into both the Dimensity 1200 and the Snapdragon 888 Plus, so full 5G support on the Vivo X70 Pro and the Pro Plus as well. As far as the battery life goes, well, both the X70 Pro and the X70 Pro Plus seem capable of making it through a full day with lots of intensive use as well, lots of background music streaming, lots of sat-nav action, camera play, all that good stuff. Battery capacity is basically the same. We're talking 4,450 mAh versus 4,500. And the recharge speed slightly better on the Pro Plus model. You got 55 watt fast charging on there versus the 44 watt on the standard Vivo X70 Pro. Still very nippy indeed though. But when it comes to wireless charging, the Pro Plus, the more premium model, is the only one that supports it, and it is 50 watt wireless charging as well. So if you've got a supported Qi wireless charging pad that can do up to 50 watts, then banana-rama. So let's finish up this unboxing and comparison with a squint at that camera tech, and as you can see there, Vivo is still very chummy with the Zeiss, got a good bit of Zeiss branding on both the Pro and the Pro Plus. And Zeiss actually provided the T-Star glass for the lenses. It's the same as Sony's flagships, which just helps to reduce reflections, prevent ghosting, yada yada, especially handy if you're shooting in strong light or at night time where you have some very strong light sources like candles or street lights to contend with. And unsurprisingly, the X70 Pro and the Pro Plus use the same camera UI essentially. You've got the same bonus camera modes chucked on there, including the likes of the night mode, the portrait mode, maximum resolution mode, all that good stuff. Now, the Vivo X70 Pro uses a 50 megapixel IMX766V sensor. That's a custom version of the standard Sony IMX766 for improved low light performance, and that's compared with the Pro Plus's 50 megapixel Samsung GN1 sensor. You've got optical image stabilisation on both, plus a 5-axis gimbal stabilisation. Again, helpful when things get a bit dim. Both Vivo phones can spaff out a sharp, finely detailed photo with accurate colour reproduction, providing you knock off all that usual AI shenanigans, which tends to overemphasise certain hues depending on the subject, and of course all of that beautified bollocks can go as well. The main difference I noticed was that the Pro Plus copes much better in stronger light with less flaring and other visual issues, and in general the Pro tends to pump out brighter shots than the Pro Plus, with the more premium phone coming closer to what you'll actually see with your peepers. The Pro Plus also has an additional V1 imaging processor to help brighten and denoise your pics, just to name a couple of its many uses. And in low light this definitely has an impact, producing much sharper, more natural looking images. And there's also a big difference when it comes to the ultra-wide angle effort as well, because you've got a 12 megapixel ultra-wide angle lens here on the Vivo X70 Pro. On the Pro Plus that is boosted to a 48 megapixel effort, again with a bit of that gimbal action. I definitely noticed that the Pro Plus's ultra-wide angle shooter captured more natural colours, again compared with the Vivo X70 Pro, especially in that stronger light. And in lower light as well, that gimbal action really helps out, means you get a much clearer, sharper photo. And both of these blowers also have an 8 megapixel periscope lens as well, with 3 times optical zoom. That's absolutely fantastic for getting detailed photos from a distance. And both the Vivo X70 Pro and the X70 Pro Plus rock a 12 megapixel portrait lens as well, a dedicated lens, although this does use a slightly different sensor on both, and again it looks like more natural looking images here on the Pro Plus. Switch to video and you can shoot up to 4K resolution footage here on the Vivo X70 Pro at either 30 or 60 frames per second. However, here on the Vivo X70 Pro Plus you can boost that all the way up to a stunning 8K resolution. And so far, the footage that I've shot on both the X70 Pro and the Pro Plus, absolutely fine. You know, nice strong detailing in there at that 4K resolution, respectable image stabilization, reasonably accurate color capture on both. And are you really going to be swayed by that 8K video option? Still don't really see the point, as how many people actually have the ability to play back 8K footage. And another difference that's definitely worth pointing out is the fact that when you're at that 4K resolution level, you can swap between the standard lens and the telephoto lens here on the X70 Pro. On the Pro Plus, you can actually bring that ultra-wide angle lens into play as well. And the X70 Pro Plus does also support HDR video shooting as well if you are dealing with rather strong contrast. As for the selfie results, it's a 32 megapixel front-facing snapper on both the Vivo X70 Pro and the Pro Plus. Very similar results from the pair of them, so either's fine for your better instas or whatever else. And there you have it. That in a nutshell is how the fresh new Vivo X70 Pro stacks up against the Vivo X70 Pro Plus. As you can see, quite a lot of difference between the two, but then there will also be a big gap in that price as well. So which one are you more tempted by? Can you see yourself upgrading to that Pro Plus, or would you be happy with just the standard Pro? It would be absolutely lovely to hear from you guys in the comments below. Please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech. I'm going to bring you a full review of that Vivo X70 Pro Plus imminently, so definitely don't want to miss that. So have yourselves a fantastic rest of the week, and cheers, love you!